Nvidia holding up on its high as the US just allowed Microsoft to ship Nvidia AI chips to use in UAE for the first time. Amazon and OpenAI have agreed to a $38 billion deal to expand compute capacity. Amazon holding up at its all-time high above 255. Apple will use Google Gemini model to power the next version of Siri. These are just some of the few stocks propping up the entire S&P 500, and we are going to talk about what is going on today because we are in a choppy, volatile market, and we got a massive sell-off this morning before rebounding. Guys, watch until the end of the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn post notifications on if you don't have them on already. I appreciate all the birthday wishes that you guys showed me yesterday, and I appreciate all the new members that jumped into Discord. If you're not in there, join now. It's the top link in the description. Okay. First of all, let's talk about the market. Yesterday, we said that the market, if it was going to see some sort of correction, it would happen between today and 2 weeks from now. And this morning, we saw a sell-off in the market. Now, what I could not guarantee was that we saw a correction. What I could say that I was fairly confident in was a volatility for the next 1 to 3 weeks of November until late November. And I still stand by seeing that. Will a correction come in amidst the volatility? Well, it seems as if that's already happening with Bitcoin, and I'll explain why right now, but you can see where the SPY is trading. It's ping-pong between 680 and 686, back and forth, rejecting off of this ascending resistance and bouncing off of this ascending support until when I believe we are going to break down to 673.60. I am now in some puts on the S&P 500 as I see some bearish flow. Now, the reason I originally said that is because I have been spotting some stealth selling, which we saw in Bitcoin's chart as well. Every time we have red candles, the volume is much higher, and it seems as if Bitcoin is not holding too well. We have broken below key support today, and I think Bitcoin will continue to fall towards 100K or 98K right now before bottoming out and possibly making its move up to 131, which gives us that 1 to 2 week time frame of a correction. Now, if Bitcoin's correcting that hard, I also assume the SPY is not going to be at its strongest, to say the least. That comes after $570 million worth of crypto longs were liquidated in just 1 hour, so people are freaking out and hitting that sell button. Now, another big thing that we looked into was repos, the repo market. We talked about reverse repos several times on this channel over the past few years. We talk about repos a little bit more rare, and right now we are seeing a bit of issues in the repo market. After a record 50 billion use of repo on October 31st, today's standing repo usage was almost 15 billion. Now, that's not a record, but it indicates significant funding stress. This means that banks, institutions, they need more liquidity. Here's basically a too long didn't read. The elevated $15 billion standing repo facility usage on November 3rd, today, after a $50 billion spike on October 31st, signals ongoing funding shortages, suggesting banks are struggling to secure short-term cash. That means potential volatility, which I talked about and confirmed. Persistent repo market strain may lead to higher borrowing costs as well as increased volatility, especially if reserves remain tight ahead of the Fed ending quantitative tightening. That is why I say there are several reasons why we have a 1 to 3 week window for volatility, 1 to 2 week window for correction, because 1 to 2 week for correction means that third week people will have time to position before the end of QT. Now, the market impact. Stocks and bonds could face downward pressure, which we just saw the beginning of. If funding issues escalate, which we already just saw a double confirmation, though a Fed intervention or policy shift might stabilize things, watch for red days or choppy trading as a near-term risk. So stocks and bonds could face a sell-off, especially if funding issues escalate. Both of those we are seeing signs of right now. So we're watching for increased volatility as well as some sort of correction. However, what can turn this around very quickly and kill you out of those bearish positions is the Fed intervening or shifting their policy. So we will wait for that. And speaking of that, we do have news this week. I believe we get the ADP report. I'm not sure what day that is. I'll double check and I'll drop it in Discord, maybe make a YouTube post on it. Broader signal, this hints at systematic cracks and per markets, heretics, liquidity framework, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so we got all that out of the way. We know what type of market we are in. We're watching for down moves towards 675 to 673. Watch for a hold there, then moves following that. But what else are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about GameStop, AMC, beyond, but earnings tonight. Earnings are going to be a big part of this market because one of the companies that are really going to put a damper in things possibly is Palantir. Now, I originally was bearish on Palantir's earnings. I have my reasons. Maybe they're not great reasons, but a weak market is never good for any sort of earnings report. But what I will say is the flow is looking bullish on Palantir earnings. This makes this extremely risky to play. When your gut tells you one thing, but the flow tells you another thing, and market makers are telling you other things, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on. If you're playing Palantir earnings, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Plain and simple, I'm watching a break above 221.50, or I'm watching a break below 180. Ultimately 180 to 161. I know that's a big drop, but above 221 to maybe 240. Palantir and HIMS are the two where I expect they're going to have massive moves. Now, HIMS can come out with some interesting guidance, interesting news. However, based on their previous earnings, based on this floor being tested again, I like HIMS to the downside, and I expect this one is going to have a massive move one way or the other, and I expect that if you play it the wrong way, you are going to wake up to a 100% loss. This, along with Palantir, are going to move very hot, very hard tonight. It's going to be a fun time, but if you want to play something for the open instead, you have Uber, Shopify, Spotify, Pfizer, Hut 8, all these. Beautiful time in the market. Beyond. Let's talk about Beyond since we're talking about earnings. Beyond was supposed to have earnings Tuesday after close, and you can see that right here. Beyond as a company postponed their earnings to November 11th. Now, we did come down to a key support level at 134 that I talked about. Below this is 114 to 104. Yep, 114 to 104. Okay, right now, it's not looking good heading into earnings. I would watch for a reversal before we get to 114. You want to hold in this zone and reverse back higher. Be watching it closely. But one thing that doesn't strike me as bullish is the FTDs. We talked about BYND's FTDs yesterday, failure to delivers. They're very high on a single day, and the government is shut down. There's going to be a lot of messed up data that is hidden, not like the SEC does their job anyway, but most of the SEC staff are currently furloughed due to the government shutdown. They will not be available to review or respond to FTD-related queries or compliance issues unless they are designated as emergency functions. Now, as this is all true, it does state in their filings that amidst a government shutdown, they do have the rights to go and backtrack and check the record keeping. Therefore, if something does persist as illegal, they can go back and send those fines out. Will they do that? I don't really know. But we have FTDs, major FTDs, XRT always having FTDs. Then we have IWM. Both of these ETFs hold one GameStop and then one AMC as well. Jumping in AMC's chart, earnings Wednesday, that is still on the line for earnings. This kind of scares me because GameStop is prepping for a move to the downside. I know you all see it. We'll talk about that in half a second from now. AMC is testing its all-time lows right here. Okay, and there's not much to say. Okay, coming into earnings, the algorithm is showing that we are in a hard sell-off for AMC as well as GameStop. I'm worried we have a very bad earnings. Even though box office numbers have been great, we might have a very hard overreaction towards 215 on earnings, maybe even 176. And what will that news be? Well, it might be just talks on the dilution. AMC wants to raise even more shares that shareholders are going to vote on or something along the lines of that. I'm not saying that it will bleed off. I'm just saying that right now, hedging with puts is my strategy. I don't get financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Okay, let's talk about GameStop. This morning, GameStop decided that it wanted to break down, and it looked like we got a confirmation of a breakdown because we broke below this wick, these wicks, this whole support zone. But last time we saw that, we came low, we came lower, we came lower down here. How hard would that breakdown be? Well, maybe you'll hold this entire area. You do have tons of buy orders down here, sub 2175 that I did not see prior. But if we bring in the drawings, the trend line, the ascending support level isn't until $19.30. $19.30 is how much you're risking on the table at this level on GameStop, where I would say mid-November would be the bottom, which is exactly where I see the market's bottom to be amidst any sort of correction. And then we see a squeeze coming into early December. This right now is the outlook. Okay, this day to day is the outlook for now. How would this look on the cycles that we talked about? Well, we have these 3 cycles. We're about 60 days in. There's a couple of periods where we're 60 days in where you already passed that 70% zone or 70% mark where GameStop had its peak, and then you get to that 60 days in and you're kind of finishing what's happening. Then you would see this U in the chart, which is exactly what we just showed right here before whatever else happened, right? Last time it was a sell-off. Would we go lower? I doubt it. But if you come and you take a look at the previous moves, we have set up 1, 2, 3 before the peak, and then a massive crash beyond that. You've had 1, 2, and then the same time frame for this peak, which is where we're at right now, and then we're amidst this mini crash that we have. Well, what would that mean? Well, if we followed the previous cycle, it means you crash down, maybe consolidate, and then flush lower and hard very quickly, which would kind of line up with AMC's earnings. We could have a very, very bloody week on both of these. I'm not calling for that, but that is just what is looking more likely from the Monday perspective. Lottery stocks, you're bearish. I'm going to stop watching you. I give you what is real. I'm not letting go of GameStop or AMC until I see the squeeze. And we've been here for quite a while. Exposing corruption, talking about where these plays are going to go. I'm not going to be 100% optimistic to the point where it's delusion, but I will say right now, I think it's disgusting with GameStop under $22 a share. I think that their value is stupidly undervalued at $22 a share. That's why you're probably seeing these order blocks down here. These institutions have been loading the most they've ever been loading. And any pullback is kind of a buying opportunity in my mind. So I'll leave it at that. It's basically all I have to say. We might be somewhat pegged to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's falling hard right now because GameStop has a little investment in that. You're probably going to see those bearish articles. Oh, GameStop's investment in Bitcoin probably isn't looking too good, and that's why the stock is selling off. No, you're going to see stuff like that. Overall, I'm following the market. I'm playing a bearish position currently, slight bearish bias with caution over the next 1 to 2 weeks, hopefully scalping some money off of this volatility. Watching Palantir and HIM's earnings. Palantir, I'm debating 50-50. HIM's, I'm playing to the downside, and we'll see what happens. That is it, guys. I love you all. God bless. And if you don't know how to join the Discord, basically in the description of all the videos, because people were curious, there is a link. It says My Trading Group. You press the link, and then you follow the steps to pay, sign up, join. It's going to have you join after you follow through the checkout, and then it'll put you right in the server. Make sure you have the Discord app on your phone. If not, it'll take you through the website. That is fine too. If you're not familiar with Discord, it's a free app. Go download it. Again, that's the top link. It says My Trading Group. Below that, if you want a custom indicator added to your TradingView charts, it's my pattern detection indicator and forecasting. That is it, guys. I love you all. God bless. Lottery stocks out.